We're speaking today with actor, writer, Dean Emeritus of the Actors Studio Drama School at Pace University, lover of words and prolific interviewer, and since 1994, host of Inside the Actors Studio on Bravo, now going into its 19th season. But most of all, Pilot and Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association member James Lipton, who has...
By all means, most of all.
Thank you so much for having us into your lovely home here, and we want to turn the tables on you. We've got our blue cards and 10 questions. Are you ready? How did you get started in aviation?
I volunteered for the armed services as a cadet pilot. I began my training, but I didn't finish because they came to us and they said, look, there's no war going on at this moment, and therefore it's very expensive for us to train you, so you'll have to sign up for, I think it was 4 years they asked us for, after we finished our training and got our wings and our bars. And so you have the option either of signing up with us for that length of time, or we'll say thank you very much and so long. I thought about it hard because I really did want to be a pilot, but I went home and didn't resume my training until years later as a general aviation pilot. That's when I got my ticket.
Well, thank you very much for your service. And what were some of your earliest challenges in aviation?
My earliest challenges in aviation were landing an airplane. Landing an airplane is the single hardest thing I've ever learned how to do. Maybe that's my fault. But it does require a lot of different skills, and it requires an awful lot of practice. And I would say that the most challenging thing for me was landing. Now there are other things as well, navigation, and there are all sorts of skills that are required to fly an airplane. And I enjoyed them all, and they were all welcome challenges. But certainly, at the beginning, just the prospect of being up there alone, being the PIC, the pilot in command, and being responsible for getting that airplane back on the ground, I found that very difficult. It took time to learn.
Other than landing, what was the hardest lessons to learn?
When I began training as a private pilot, I said to my wife, look, I can become a pilot if I pass my FAA written exam with a grade of 70, I think it was. And that's not good enough. If I score lower than 90 in the written exam, I'll stop. I'll never take my check ride. I'll never get my ticket. I'm a great believer in people doing things right, of people doing them meticulously, and of working hard and training hard and learning. Anybody who's watched my show know that that's one of my signatures, for better or for worse. And so I took the exam. I went in, determined. I would not be disappointed if I didn't qualify, by my standards. I got a 97 on the written FAA exam. I would say that was the other greatest challenge, and also the greatest triumph. When I got that score, which was the highest score that anybody had gotten in our flight school in a long, long time, I felt that I was qualified to continue to take the check ride, to get the ticket, and to ask other people to put their lives in my hands.
What drives you to perfection like that? What makes you want to strive to be the best?
I'm not sure that it's correct to say that there's anything that drives me to want to be the best, because I don't think I am the best or can be the best in anything that I attempt. I also don't believe that perfection is possible or even desirable as a goal. When people say to me, well, I'm a perfectionist, I don't believe them for a minute. I just think they're talking about being stubborn and wanting things their way. So I don't think I'm a perfectionist. I don't believe that one should be. All I know is how to put one foot in front of the other, and how to work hard at any given moment to stay in the moment, as we say in my profession, and to try to do as well as I can with any task, one after another, and then when it's all added up at the end, someone else can say I did a good job or not. But I really believe in that. When I'm working on my show and I'm preparing for it, it takes me 2 weeks to prepare for each of my shows. I work here in this house often 12 hours a day, and two weeks solid for each guest who comes to my show. And then I produce out of my computer the 300 or 400 blue cards that you see on the stage, all produced by me. I do my own research. And I do it for a reason, because I want, when I go on that stage, to be completely, fully prepared. Will I be perfect? Absolutely not. Will I be very good? That's for somebody else to say. Will I be bad? That's for somebody else to say. But at least I'll be prepared. And I believe that when you're flying an airplane, the preparation is all. Flying the plane can become almost mechanical if you've prepared correctly. I'm talking about navigation, I'm talking about weather, I'm talking about all the things that you have to do before you rotate, take off, and then you're the PIC. You're in command of that plane. If you've got somebody sitting next to you, sitting in the back seat, behind you, friends, whatever, you owe it to them and to yourself and to the airplane and to this wonderful, beautiful craft of flying to be fully prepared. That is to say, from the first day that you ever got into an airplane and said, I'm going to be a pilot. Preparation, preparation, preparation. So that the actual act of flying an airplane becomes, mechanical isn't a good word, but it does become for you organic. It's something that you do without thinking twice or three times. And that and prepares you for the possibility of having to make quick decisions that will be important.
And what advice would you give to students?
Preparation. Preparation for every lesson, for every flight, for every day that you're sitting there in the cockpit of an airplane. And as for specific advice, spend a lot of time in slow flight. Slow flight is the secret, of course, of landings. And I think that when you're doing air work up there and you're doing steep turns and all the things that we have to do to prepare ourselves for anything that will ever happen up in the air, the most important thing of all is slow flight. Because once you've mastered slow flight, then when you're landing an airplane, it becomes really automatic. And the ideal thing for me always was to touch down on the stall horn. As I stalled, I touched down, and then I knew I'd done it right. Slow flight, slow flight, slow flight.
What is your favorite aviation activity?
Well, flying an airplane, knowing that I've just rotated and lifted off the runway and that now it's up to me. That's the favorite activity. But if you were to ask, a broader question, an event or times that you've had in the airplane that you enjoyed the most. My wife and I have a home in the Hamptons, and we frequently have gone to the airport, got into a plane, with a couple of friends in the back seat, my wife in the right seat, me in the left. This is in a Cessna 1472 with four-seater. Say 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, on a beautiful summer day, take off and go to Nantucket or Martha's Vineyard. 45 minutes after we take off, I land in Martha's Vineyard, say, or Nantucket. Park the plane, get out, go to dinner. My wife and my friends have a drink and enjoy themselves. I do not, of course, because I'm flying the airplane, and besides, I don't care much about drinking anyway, so it's no loss. But have a wonderful dinner. About 11 o'clock, I go back to the airport, and it's dark. They close down, of course, out there. And I click my microphone 5 times, and it lights up. I lit up an entire airport, green and blue and red and white. I turned on an airport. I go to the end of the runway, take off. 45 minutes later, I'm tying down in East Hampton. And 15, 20 minutes later, my guests and my wife and I have all gone to our respective beds. And we're going to sleep, blissfully to sleep. And that's an adventure. That's a lovely way to spend an evening for me. I can't think of a better way.
Turning the page, what is your least favorite aviation activity?
It happened to me. My ambition was to, once in my life, to fly a bush plane in Alaska, the most challenging environment. any pilot can face. On that occasion, it was December. I flew the Iditarod Trail, which goes from Anchorage to Nome. I flew in a 1956 Aranca. I flew through the Rainy Pass in a snowstorm, fulfilling all my dreams, all my dreams. I was a bush pilot at last, and the engine went out. Silence, way up there at top of the Alaska Range. I got it going again, but I would say that my least favorite moment in an airplane was that moment of silence. And then the best moment in an airplane ever was when that engine kicked in again.
What is your favorite aircraft?
Well, I fly what I can afford. I fly what I'm trained for. I'm single engine land. And so it would be a 172 or a Piper, either one.
If you could have any airplane from 1903 to the present, what's in your dream hangar?
Well, it's hard to say because we like airplanes for different purposes, don't we?
You could have as many as you would like. What's in that hangar?
Oh my God. I'd like a Bonanza. I could probably, if I were a more qualified pilot, I'd probably ask for a jet, of course. These new light jets, I think, are wonderful. I would like to do that, but I keep thinking in the realm of possibility. Just a Bonanza would do it nicely. Thank you. I'll take it, by the way. If AOPA is offering me a Bonanza in return for this interview, my answer is I'll find a hangar spell.
Well, as a member, you're eligible to be entered for our sweepstakes debonair.
That's right. I am a subscriber, so.
Yeah. What is your most memorable aviation experience?
That would be the flying the bush plane. 1956 Aranca with canvas wings. In the dead of winter, on the Iditarod Trail, up through Alaska, over to Mount McKinley. It was beyond thrilling. I would say that the second most exciting experience, I was not the pilot. That was when I was invited by two Air France pilots to fly in the third seat with them to Paris, and which I did at Mach 2, and I would say that was the other great experience.
Of course, and in the Concorde, what went through your mind when you got on that flight deck and realized you were in a Mach 2 jetliner?
It was amazing because it was it didn't feel different. I could see that it was Mach 2. You could see in the instrument panel that we were at Mach 2. And I could see the curvature of the Earth because we were up so high. But the most exciting thing was when we landed. We landed at Charles de Gaulle in a fog. And they bring that thing in at 29 degrees. They don't flare it the way I would flare an airplane. They bring it at 29 degrees. That's why the nose drops. And they landed. And when we had taken off, I did what I always do on a flight, just automatically. Started my stopwatch. And when we touched down, I stopped my stopwatch, and the pilot said to me, "How did we do?" And I said, 3 hours and 15 minutes. Now bear in mind, this was on an August Friday afternoon, when normally my wife and I would be driving from Manhattan to the Hamptons to our house out there. And he said to me, "How did we do?" And I said, "We couldn't have gotten to East Hampton in 3 hours and 15 minutes.
Not even on the Jitney.
On the Jitney, or, I mean, I drive pretty fast in my Audi, but couldn't have done it.
All right, one last question. Assuming heaven is real and it has an airport, what do you want the Wright brothers to say to you when you taxi up to the ramp?
My God, you greased that landing. That's what I want to hear. I greased it from the Wright brothers. What greater praise could I ask for?
I don't know. Well, James Lipton, thank you very much for having us to your lovely home. And
thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your stories about
I'm proud of
flying.
being a member of AOPA, I'll tell you that.